gentlemen, as promised on the podcast, I'm going to bring to you my top 10. Well, I'm kind of cheating. I think there's like 12, technically 13 matches on this list. But it's a top 10 because some of them tied because I just couldn't make it. Plus honorable mentions. So we're going to start off with number 10, which is one of the ties. Angle vs. Lesnar at WrestleMania 19 is the first up. This match was just a clinic of two NCAA greats, an Olympic champion versus a four-time NCAA champion. We had some great mat wrestling. We had some great high spots, including Lesnar almost killing himself with a shooting star press. This match, I'll never forget watching this match with my friends. Nelson, who's off camera currently for this, included. We were all watching that match, and when we saw Lesnar go for that shooting star press and land on his neck, we all just screamed out, "Oh!"
And then your
and
dad.
Because we were high school, maybe college then. My dad heard it. We woke him up. He had work the next day. Pissed off. Came downstairs. But, oh man, that was a spot. But that was just a hell of a match. Tied for this match is from WrestleMania 28. Taker vs. Triple H, end of an era match. We had Shawn Michaels as special guest referee. We had a hell of a match inside a Hell in a Cell. Those two guys just going at it, not quitting. We even had HBK give a sweet chin music to Taker. Still didn't keep him down. We had a great moment, a moment that I feel Taker should have retired on, when you had the three of them, the three men who literally carried the WWE from the late 90s to the close of WCW into the brand new era. All three on the entryway waving. That was a fantastic match. Nelson, what the hell just freaked you up off camera?
Something fell. I was like, what the hell was that?
I thought there was a mouse or something. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Coming in at number 9, we have technically two matches, but it tells a story. WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan overcoming the Authority, overcoming Randy Orton, and overcoming Batista to capture the WWE Undisputed title at WrestleMania 30. First off, Bryan with his ribs taped and everything. That was like fantasy booking. That's when we, the fans, took over the WWE. Bryan wasn't in the main event. Shoot, he wasn't even on the Mania card at first. We all willed that to happen. We cheered, we yelled yes, we chanted, and he got put in there. If he beat Triple H, he'd go on to the main event in Triple Threat. He beat Triple H at the start of the card. In the Triple Threat, he got taken off on a stretcher. He came back. Not only did he win, but he made Batista tap. Do you think The Rock would come back from Hollywood and tap? No, Batista did that for Bryan. It was a great moment. The confetti, he's holding up the two belts, and the first thing he does with that title, he rolls out of the ring, and he goes over to little Connor, gives him a hug, and says, "I couldn't do this without you." That was a moment. And now that I'm talking about that, it should be higher than number 9 on my list.
Yeah, it should.
But the list is set in stone. I can't change it. It's in dry erase marker on a dry erase board. But that was a hell of a moment. That actually, if I'm talking moments, that might be number 2 on my list. Because that was a hell of a Mania moment. And that's a list I should have done, was Mania moments. But I only got matches and Manias. But that was a hell of a moment. It was great. Coming in at number 8 from X7. It's pronounced X7. It's not 17. Because it's written out X-7. If you say 17, you're retarded. You know, the WWE was kind of retarded for doing X7. Because it's the only year they did the X plus the number. But it's TLC 2! Seeing the Hardys versus Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys. It was a brutal match. People hanging from belts. People getting speared. Jeff Hardy nearly killing himself several times.
And staying in the rampway for like half of the next match.
Yeah. God, that was a great match. X7 is one of the best Manias ever. And that might have been the top match on that card. And that was a stacked card, too. Excuse me. Which is why it's one of the best Manias ever. So that's why it makes this list at number 8. Coming at number 9, we've got another tie. First off is Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. That stole the show at 13, because 13 was a rather crap WrestleMania. That saved that WrestleMania. I mean, after all, we literally had Psycho Sid crapping his pants versus The Undertaker in the main event. But that is the moment that made Stone Cold. Stone Cold had been building since WrestleMania 12. That's when he lost to Savio Vega on purpose in the strap match to get DiBiase fired. And I remember that Superstars the following week, Michael Hayes was interviewed and was like, "Man, that's cold." And he looks at the camera and goes, "That's Stone Cold." But this was the moment Stone Cold Steve Austin was truly born. When he was bleeding, he wouldn't tap, and he passed out. And that was the famous double turn where Stone Cold went from heel to babyface and Bret from face to heel. Fantastic storytelling by both men in the ring. A fantastic match. Not even hampered by Ken Shamrock being the special guest referee. And then tied for that, which the match was pretty decent, but it was the ending is why it ties for number 7 on this list. Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 31. A match where we're all watching, and I think everybody I knew was thinking, I really don't... It was kind of like this year's election. I don't want this guy to win. I don't want this guy to win. And you're just kind of like, what is the least damage that can happen with this person holding the title? And I remember just me and my friends going back and forth, because this was before Reigns was truly hated, but he was really hated. And I remember just talking with my friends thinking like, we don't really want to see Brock with the belt because then he'll just disappear again. We don't want to see Reigns win at WrestleMania because that's a shitty way to close out WrestleMania, which is what they did to the one WrestleMania I was at. So what did they do? They saved it. In the middle of the match, Seth Rollins' music hits. He runs down, exchanges it. Goes for the curb stomp on Brock, but he throws him up to the F5. But then it's speared by Reigns. Rollins gets up, curb stomps Reigns, and 1, 2, 3, surprise champion. That might have been one of the best title wins ever. Because no one saw it coming. Because that was the first time ever a Money in the Bank. Because I think that's what we were talking about. I think we were talking about like, well, maybe after the match is over, Rollins will come down, exchange, and get the win that way.
Yeah.
But it was even better with him coming in the middle of the match.
Because we didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Well, rules are fluid in the WWE, really. But no, that was awesome. It was a great way to finish that Mania off. Especially because that was a pretty good Mania in and of itself. And that just made the ending good. Because it always sucks when you have a good pay-per-view that ends terribly. So that saved that Mania. Even more so than him cashing in at the end of the match. Coming in at number 6, and one of these participants is going to be a theme for the rest of this list. Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. If I remember correctly, this was the first of their 3 matches. Michaels went on top on this one. And again, much like I was talking about with the Angle-Lesnar match, it was just great wrestling. It was great storytelling in the ring. It was seeing these two, well, one icon, one future icon going at it. It was just a brilliant match. And this was one of those WrestleManias that, from the string that I used to order them like every year that we watched, and it was great. And again, it overshadowed the main event, something Shawn Michaels has a habit of doing. Number 5, speaking of overshadowing the main event, WrestleMania 3, Savage vs. Steamboat. Now, rumor has it Savage wrote out the entire match, every single move that the two of them would do beforehand, and him and Steamboat both memorized it and barely rehearsed it. Also, this match never really has a lull spot. Like, if you notice, most matches will get to a spot where a guy's got a headlock on. That's a reverse headlock. Then we have some, like, mat stuff so they can catch their breath. These two were going for, like, 20, 25 minutes, something like that. And it just kept going at a frantic pace. In fact, WrestleMania 3, I think I was 4 when that happened. So, obviously, I didn't watch it live, but I've gone back and watched it. And I've gone back as an adult and watched it. And it gets even better when you know the ins and outs of wrestling. This is just a clinic being put on by these two guys. And it was a fantastic match. This and the Andre Hogan match saved WrestleMania 3 because that, again, another Mania that was kind of a crap card that had a couple bright spots on it. Coming in at number 4 now. 2 matches, because I can't really differentiate these 2 matches. HBK versus Undertaker, WrestleMania 25 and 26. Because both are great matches. Maybe WrestleMania 25 is a little bit better of a match, but you had the emotional impact of career versus streak in 26. And plus, the two blend in together for me. Like, literally, it's hard for me to differentiate. If you just show me a photo from one of the matches, I can't tell you which is which. Just because they're just both so good, and they both tell great stories. And it's just HBK showing that he still got it, and just... This was kind of the start of Taker needing to be led to good matches because he wasn't really having good matches on his own. And HBK brought him to the promised land, and that's why they did it 2 years in a row. Number 3, and this is mostly for the moment that it created in the middle of the match, but Hogan vs. Rock, WrestleMania 18. I don't know if anybody expected that Toronto crowd to start chanting Hulk Hogan in the middle of that match. Like, it wasn't supposed to be a face turn by Hogan in that match. But both men had to stop in the middle of the match just because they both became overwhelmed by the chants for Hogan in Toronto. Like I said, the match was okay. It was kind of a forgettable match. But what everyone will remember is Hogan, Hogan being chanted by that Canadian crowd. And also, I feel bad for Jericho and Triple H because there's no way they could pull out a match that could top that moment. That's a WrestleMania moment right there. And sometimes a WrestleMania moment can elevate a match so high on a list. Now, number 2. Again, I told you this is a theme. Y2J versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 19. They stole the show in Seattle. That was an epic match. Talk about just high spots, low spots. Two men, probably the two best at telling a story in the ring. I don't know if there's any two men who can tell a story as well as Jericho and Shawn Michaels can in the ring. They know how to capture the crowd and just hold them in the palm of their hand and just dominate a crowd's feelings. Like, there was back and forth. In fact, in my group of friends watching WrestleMania 19, we were all Shawn Michaels marks throughout elementary and high school. And we were all Chris Jericho fans when he was in WCW. So this was kind of like the line in the sand. Some of us were on the Michaels side. Some of us were on the Jericho side. And the best part, after Michaels won, my good friend Hamilton Hernandez tackled our frequent guest on the podcast, Tyler Richardson, to the ground and just yelled, "Let him die! Let him die!" As Tyler is just giggling in his face, and the rest of us are just cracking up. Again, a mania moment for those two and a mania moment for us, because that's kind of part of the fun of watching wrestling, is you and your friends getting caught up in a match and just loving every second of it. And then finally, at number 1, and this is my personal pick. I know it makes a lot of top 10s. It rarely ever comes this high. Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, WrestleMania 12. To me, not only was it the boyhood dream for Shawn Michaels, but I had been a fan of Shawn Michaels since the AWA days of the Rockers. Knee-high to a duck. I was a Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty Rockers fan. And I even went with Shawn when he ditched Marty Jannetty because he was my favorite rocker. And so it was great for me as a fan. WrestleMania 12, I want to say I was 13, 14 years old, something like that. To see my favorite wrestler finally win the title. I lost it. I loved it. And not only that, but this was a great match. I don't know if anybody could really hold a crowd for 62 minutes in an Iron Man match that goes into overtime at WrestleMania that has 0 falls. Like, we've seen Iron Man matches since then, but there's always falls in the middle. These two told a great story. There were slow spots because 62-minute match, but they told a great story. They kept the energy high. And I remember, I'll never forget this one moment where Bret landed on like the timekeeper's lap. Shawn went to kick him. Got the timekeeper instead. That shit looked real. It looked like he hit that guy with his foot and he was out. But it was a great moment. I remember Bret slapped the sharpshooter on. Time expired. Earl Hebner stopped the match. And then, I don't know if it was Monsoon or Piper came down. It was one of them saying, "There's not going to be a tie. This is going to go to overtime." I think it was Gorilla Monsoon.
I think it was Monsoon.
And so then we had the overtime. Shawn Michaels and Bret are going at it again. Shawn hits the sweet chin music and they both go down. Bret stumbling to his feet. Shawn gets to the corner, starts tuning up the band, hits him in the middle of the ring, rolls him up, almost like rolled him over completely. He was so excited. 1, 2, 3, drops to his knees, clenches his fist. Earl Hebner gives him the belt. He's breaking down crying, and that's a lot of work. And it's great seeing those moments, especially for those guys who grew up in the business, like Shawn Michaels, like the boyhood dreams, true story. Little kid, grew up, loved the business. So when you see moments like that, it's fantastic. And now, that is my number 1 moment. But I'm going to give you some honorable mentions. Some that could have made this list, because this is a really tough list to make. Because there were some great Mania matches. And the trend of Shawn Michaels does continue through this honorable mentions list too. Shawn Michaels versus John Cena. That was a fantastic match. We all expected Cena to win there, but there were points in that match where it looked like Shawn Michaels might have come out on top of that. HBK versus Triple H versus Benoit. Great triple threat match. That was the Mania where both Benoit and Guerrero both won the titles. They ended the night hoisting up their 2 titles. Angle and Benoit, another great wrestling match. 2 great guys, great technicians taking it on. This one is mostly because it's a Mania moment, but Hogan versus Andre. A fantastic moment when Hogan slams him and does the leg drop, gets the 1, 2, 3. 90,000 plus in the Pontiac Silverdome go crazy. Then from WrestleMania 8, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't WrestleMania 8, this is maybe 19, I can't remember, but Flair versus Taker. That was really like the first match where they really started to talk about the streak. And Ric Flair, this is when Flair could still go, could still have a good match. And of course, Flair even tried to cheat Arn Anderson running down the ring trying to get Taker, and Taker just taking them both out. It was a great match. It was a good start of how the streak was supposed to go. Then we had Piper versus Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 8, I want to say, for the IC title. Is when Piper slapped on the sleeper hold on Bret in the corner. Bret kicked off the corner and held him down for the pin, 1, 2, 3. And that really propelled Bret Hart into the stratosphere. That's what made Bret Hart a household name and made the company take notice that he was the guy to carry them into the next generation. And then last in the honorable mentions, we're going to get Edge versus Undertaker for the World Heavyweight title. It's one of the few times Taker actually main evented for the title in a WrestleMania. You think we talk about the streak all the time. That's what WrestleMania seems to be all about. But I believe Taker's only main evented 3 times. And only 2 of them were for the title. So that's my list. Disagree if you want. If so, let me know what your top 10 list or what your favorite Mania matches is in the comments below. And keep tuned for all of our WrestleMania stuff this week. And of course, we're going to be recapping Mania next Wednesday on the podcast.